Good evening. Federal officials confirm a massive breach, over 50 terabytes of classified NSA data removed by a contractor now in custody.
CNN has learned the stolen files include top-secret cyber tools from the NSA's elite hacking unit, a breach officials call unprecedented.
The federal courtroom feels colder than the winter morning outside. Rows of sealed evidence drives line the prosecution's table, each labeled with a word that chills the room: classified. A gray-haired man sits alone at the defense bench, Harold T. Martin III. His expression is blank, but his eyes flicker with exhaustion. He's not a spy in a trench coat, nor a hacker in a hoodie. He looks like someone's quiet neighbor, the kind who waves when collecting the mail. But the walls around him hum with the weight of what he's done. Behind those expressionless eyes lies the largest theft of secrets in American history, more than 50 terabytes of data from the NSA itself. Code names, cyber weapons, surveillance blueprints. The prosecutor's voice cuts through the silence. This man possessed the tools that could dismantle nations. For a moment, no one breathes. How could one man, a Navy veteran, a government contractor, have quietly stolen the intelligence crown jewels of the United States for 2 decades, and no one noticed? How did it all lead to this? Long before the headlines and the handcuffs, Harold T. Martin III lived an unremarkable life. Born in Maryland in 1964, he grew up in an ordinary suburban neighborhood, polite, intelligent, and intensely curious about how things worked. Teachers remembered him as the quiet boy who dismantled radios just to rebuild them again. His fascination with machines became a fascination with systems, the invisible ones that governed communication, data, and power. After high school, Martin joined the U.S. Navy, where his gift for code-breaking and information systems quickly caught attention. He rose through technical ranks, earning commendations for his precision and loyalty. When his service ended, he transitioned seamlessly into the world of government contracting, the shadow economy of national defense. The pay was steady, the security clearance high, and the work intoxicating. Inside classified networks, Martin discovered a new kind of wilderness, endless archives of hidden tools and secrets that few humans had ever touched. He began copying files, first out of curiosity, then habit, then compulsion. It wasn't espionage in the cinematic sense. It was obsession, a digital hoarder's hunger to understand, to possess, to keep. For years, he worked with some of the most secretive agencies in the world: the NSA, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and Booz Allen Hamilton, where Edward Snowden had once been employed. Colleagues described him as brilliant but withdrawn, a man who spoke in technical riddles and often worked through the night. At home, he was different, quiet, almost invisible. He lived in a modest house filled with old computers, hard drives, and piles of printed code. His neighbors thought he was a researcher, perhaps a professor. He kept to himself, drove the same car for years, and spent weekends tinkering in his garage surrounded by humming fans and dusty servers. The more secrets he accumulated, the less he seemed to know what to do with them. He never sold the data, he never shared it. He simply kept collecting as if guarding them gave him a sense of control in a chaotic, digital world. But secrets have gravity, and when one man carries too many of them, that gravity eventually pulls everything, his work, his identity, his freedom, into collapse. By 2016, that collapse was about to begin. The first hint came from a pattern that didn't make sense. In the summer of 2016, the NSA's Internal Security Division noticed irregularities in encrypted traffic moving at odd hours from an employee network. Nothing major at first, but subtle, like a heartbeat that skips once every few seconds. Analysts began to trace the signals, expecting to find a compromised contractor or an outside intrusion. Instead, what they found pointed inward. The trail led to Harold T. Martin, a middle-aged systems contractor who had access to multiple classified environments. His name was clean, his background spotless. Yet the logs showed something impossible: massive amounts of data copied from secure servers onto portable drives, sometimes over months, sometimes years. When FBI counterintelligence agents arrived at his home in Glen Burnie, Maryland, they didn't expect what they found. Inside, the modest house looked more like a museum of secrets. Stacks of hard drives and thumb drives lined the walls. Cardboard boxes were filled with printed manuals, classified reports, and encryption keys, documents labeled TOP, secret divided by psi, divided by TK, divided by no foreign. Even a single page of those materials could be enough to ruin a career or expose an operation. Martin had thousands. Agents counted over 50 terabytes of data, more than the contents of the entire Library of Congress. The evidence room had to be expanded just to store it. At first, investigators thought he was selling information to a foreign power, but as interrogations began, a different picture emerged. Martin wasn't a spy. He was a hoarder of code, a man who couldn't stop collecting what fascinated him. When questioned, he spoke in tangents about the fragility of data, the impermanence of systems, the beauty of complex architecture. "I wanted to preserve it," he told agents quietly. "It was knowledge. We lose too much knowledge." His defense would later claim he was suffering from obsessive-compulsive disorder, that he never meant harm, that he was a man lost inside his own intellect. But that didn't explain the timing. Because just months before his arrest, a mysterious online group calling itself the Shadow Brokers had begun leaking highly classified NSA cyber weapons, the same tools Martin had stored at home. That link turned the investigation radioactive. Had Martin been the source? Was he connected to a wider breach? Or had someone exploited his carelessness to access the files he hoarded? The FBI found no direct evidence that Martin sold or leaked the tools, yet the damage was done. The world's most advanced cyber-espionage arsenal had escaped into the wild, later fueling global attacks like WannaCry. In the eyes of the intelligence community, intent no longer mattered. The fact that one man could walk out of a top-secret facility year after year, carrying the digital keys to America's most guarded secrets, that was crime enough. When agents finally sealed the evidence boxes and switched off the lights in his basement, they understood what they were looking at. Not a spy, not a terrorist, but a man who had quietly out-collected the NSA itself. By the time the trial began in 2019, the name Harold T. Martin III had already become synonymous with betrayal inside America's intelligence community. The courtroom was small, unassuming, yet the atmosphere was as tense as a Cold War summit. Rows of men in dark suits filled the gallery, NSA analysts, FBI cyber agents, even retired officials who had once signed Martin's clearance forms. On the witness stand, experts described the sheer volume of data he had taken: operational manuals, code frameworks, mission details, and entire toolkits from the NSA's elite hacking unit, Tailored Access Operations, TAO. The prosecution built their case slowly, brick by brick. They showed photos of Martin's cluttered homerooms packed with servers, drives, and printed binders stacked chest-high. They read excerpts from classified documents found in his trunk, one detailing infiltration techniques against foreign networks. Each word echoed through the courtroom like a confession. This wasn't an accident, the prosecutor declared. This was a pattern of theft that spanned 20 years. The defense countered with a portrait of a brilliant but broken man. They called him a collector, not a traitor. A man consumed by compulsion, not conspiracy. They read from psychological evaluations that described Martin as an obsessive archivist with no malicious intent. His lawyers argued that he had never transmitted or monetized the data and that no evidence tied him to the Shadow Brokers leak. But the judge saw something more dangerous, a precedent. If intent alone could absolve a man who had carried away the NSA's most sensitive files for decades, what message would that send to others with access to secrets? The courtroom fell silent as the sentence was prepared. The federal prosecutor's final words were measured, almost mournful. The United States cannot afford guardians who collect what they are sworn to protect. The judge leaned forward. Harold T. Martin III stood motionless, hands clasped in front of him. The decision came down like a hammer through air. Guilty under 18 U.S.C. Section 793(e), willful retention of national defense information. Sentence: 9 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. No reaction, no outburst, just a long, trembling exhale. Outside the courthouse, news cameras flashed. Inside, a single man was led away not for selling secrets, but for keeping them. In the echo of the closing door, America's intelligence agencies began a reckoning of their own. How could one man carry the weight of so many secrets for so long and no one see it happening? When the cell door closed behind him, Harold Martin became a ghost in the system he had once served. There would be no interviews, no memoirs, no confessions, only silence, and the quiet hum of the prison's fluorescent lights. But outside those walls, his actions rippled across the world of intelligence. The NSA launched a massive internal audit, revoking clearances, rewriting access protocols, and quietly burying the embarrassment that one man had hoarded the agency's soul without being noticed. Entire divisions were forced to re-examine how secrets were guarded not from enemies, but from themselves. For investigators, the Martin case became a textbook paradox, the difference between intent and impact. He hadn't sold secrets to Russia or China, hadn't sought glory or money. Yet, through carelessness and obsession, he had helped open the door to leaks that armed criminals, hackers, and rogue states. The shadow broker's stolen tools, the very ones found in his possession, would later be used in global cyber attacks that shut down hospitals, crippled companies, and cost lives. In the end, his punishment became a warning carved into digital history, that in an age where one thumb drive could hold the fate of nations, hoarding knowledge can be as dangerous as betraying it. For his former colleagues, the memory of Harold Martin is both shame and sorrow, a man who didn't hate his country but couldn't stop taking pieces of it home. And for the intelligence community, his name endures like a whispered caution, the reminder that the greatest breaches don't always begin with ideology or greed. Sometimes, they begin with curiosity. Under the steady hum of the prison lights, Harold T. Martin III will live out his sentence, a lifetime defined by secrets he could never let go. Outside, the world he once helped secure moves on, built upon new systems, new codes, and new firewalls, each one haunted by the same question. In an era where every secret can be copied, who can truly be trusted to hold them?